Hello, my name is Joy Lambert, and I am the Child and Adolescent Studies Librarian at Pollock Library. This video will discuss how you can evaluate web sources to use for academic level research. All of the information I will be discussing can be found on the CAS Library Guide. To get to the guide, please go to the library's homepage, library.fullerton.edu. Once there, click on the Guides icon. From there, scroll down until you find Child and Adolescent Studies, click on that, and then click on Child and Adolescent Studies again. First, we are going to take a look at the Evaluating Your Sources tab. In CAS 300, you are required to write a research paper where you cite a minimum of 6 sources, 4 peer-reviewed articles, and 2 reliable web sources. The peer-reviewed articles can be found in library databases. The 2 web sources will take a little more work to find. As we know, there is a lot of information available on the internet, but not all of it is reliable. Some of it may be reliable, but not necessarily thorough enough to cite in academic level research. Thankfully, we have some tools we can use to evaluate those sources and help us decide if a source is something we should use for our research. The CRAP test is a series of criteria we can use to help us make that determination. CRAP is an acronym for the 5 things we need to look for to make sure something is a reliable source of information. If something passes the CRAP test, then it is generally safe to use that as a source. This page of the guide has information about the CRAP test, including a short video you can watch. The guide shows you the different criteria for the test, as well as some questions that you can ask yourself to help you decide whether or not a source you're looking at meets the criteria. Let's take a look at the test. Currency, timeliness of the information. This can be more or less important depending on what you are researching. For instance, if you are researching some historical event, something written recently might not be as helpful as something written at the time of the event. However, for the most part, for the topics you will be researching, you will want to find websites and articles that have been published or updated recently. Also, you may find a website that has been updated recently but is citing sources that are outdated. This can be a red flag that this is not a reliable source to use. Relevance. The importance of the information for your needs. As you are reading the website, consider who is the intended audience. Is this something that is more appropriate for the general public? Does it explore the topic with enough depth to give it an academic analysis? Sometimes, even if the information is technically accurate, the website may just be giving a brief general overview of something. That would not meet your research need writing an academic level paper. Also, it may give a lot of detailed information, but you need to consider whether or not it is actually helping you answer your research question. Is it relevant to your research? Authority. The source of the information for your needs. Who is the person or organization who has written this website? Sometimes there will be information about the author on the site. It may tell you who they are and why they are an authority on something. It might list their credentials, as well as things they have written and other professional contributions they have made. Sometimes you need to do a bit of investigating on your own and Google the author. If it is an organization that is listed as the author, are they a reputable organization? Do you see this author or this organization cited in the books or articles of other researchers? If you do not see an author or organization listed, that is a red flag that this is not a reliable source. We need to know who is presenting the information. Accuracy. The reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. As students, you are required to cite the books, articles, and other sources you use for your research. Hold the authors of the websites you are reading to the same standard. If they are not citing their sources, that is a huge red flag. When authors don't cite sources, they are more likely just giving their opinion, which might be okay if you were just looking for an anecdote. But as academics, we need more concrete evidence. We need to be able to verify the information the authors are presenting, and if they don't give us a way to do that, this is not a reliable source of information. Also, is what they are presenting being echoed in other sources you are reading? If they are asserting something about a topic that is very different from what other authors on the same topic are saying, this can be another red flag. You usually want to get your information from a variety of sources and not just one place. Purpose. Reason the information exists. What is the purpose for this website? Does it exist to give brief information to the general public? Is it giving a rigorous academic explanation of something? Is the information presented in an objective, unbiased way? Or is it just trying to persuade you to think one way or the other about a topic? Is it trying to sell you a product or service? With the purpose in particular, we need to be very vigilant about determining whether or not a website is trying to inform us versus persuade us. And there you have the CRAP test. As you can see, it is a lot of work to evaluate a source to see if it passes the CRAP test. However, it is important work because you want to make sure that you are using reliable, credible sources that are appropriate for academic level research. So, back to our CAS guide. Now I'm going to take a look at the CAS 300 Website Evaluation Exercise tab. When you get to this page, you will see there is even more information about how to find reliable websites. Searching on the open web can be a little overwhelming sometimes. There are some tricks you can use in Google to help weed out some of the less reliable sources. However, even when using this search tip, do remember that you still have to evaluate each site to make sure that it is credible. In Google, you can build a search to retrieve only websites from certain domains. The three I will be showing you are .gov, which would be a government-sponsored website and generally reliable, .edu, which are from educational institutions like ours, .fullerton.edu, which can be more reliable, and .org, which are organizations and can also sometimes be reliable. When you do a search with your keywords, for example, school start times, and then add site:.gov, your search should retrieve sites sponsored or created by government organizations that should have information from government studies or reports on them. With .edu searches, you can find information created by someone affiliated with a university. This could be a researcher or groups of researchers who host their work on a page from their institution. A search for .org pages could find you information from research groups or nonprofits who might be more reliable than a .com page. Now that you are familiar with the criteria used in the CRAP test, you can start to evaluate web sources. Remember, high-quality web sources are written by reputable, credible organizations or authors, are timely and current, include citations and reference entries that point to specific evidence to back claims, are substantive and provide in-depth analysis of the issues at hand and/or specific studies. And you will find high-quality websites, but it will take some doing. Some of the websites you will find will also likely fit into one of the following categories, and there is a little more information on the guide itself. 1. Websites that have a credible author but are not substantive in content. Initially, these might seem reliable, but are usually written for a more general audience. Often, though, they are not thorough or substantive enough to be helpful when writing an academic paper. These are more something that someone might look at to get a general understanding of a topic, not an in-depth look that is part of an academic discussion about something. 2. Sources found online that count as scholarly research articles. This one can be quite tricky. Although we usually find scholarly research articles by searching library databases, they do exist out on the open web sometimes. So you might do a search and find a scholarly research article that just happens to be hosted on a website. It would be a great source of information and would be credible and reliable. However, this would count as one of your scholarly sources and not one of your high-quality web sources. If you see something with publication information such as a journal title or volume, issue, and page numbers, that is an article that was published in a journal. 3. Wikipedia. I think we have all used Wikipedia at some point in our lives, but I think when we do, we also read it with a grain of salt. We know that anyone can edit a Wikipedia article, and as a result, the information contained in it might not be accurate. I think Wikipedia can be useful in that it can help us get a general understanding of a topic and maybe also give us some keywords or concepts associated with the topic that we can then take to a database to find more reliable information. We can also look at the reference list for a Wikipedia article and track down those items to use as sources rather than the Wikipedia article itself. 4. Science Daily or press release. Science Daily is a website that posts summaries and/or press releases of articles that have been published. There are other similar websites that do this as well. These are not reliable sources because there isn't enough information. They are just giving you a brief synopsis. They can be helpful in that they include the citation information about the article, and you can use that to track down the actual article and read that as part of your research. 5. For-profit websites. On the internet, you will find many commercial websites whose sole purpose is to get you to buy a product or service. They will often look very slick, but rarely back up claims they make with any evidence. They are biased and do not exist to educate, but rather to take your money. Now with the CRAP test and a better idea of what you will encounter when searching for websites, it is time to apply what you have learned. Take a look at the websites in the exercise at the bottom of the page. Work by yourself or in teams. Ask yourself, do these sites pass the CRAP test? Why or why not? Would you be comfortable citing any of these in a CAS 300 paper? Good luck and happy evaluating!